paint is stinky. Smell that?
I can't smell it right now. Maybe I will in a minute. Now I smell it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have some questions here.
Okay.
And the first one is, what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
Me now.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
But I also think totally. No, yeah. What's funny is it's like, what do I want to be in, however, like, looking in the future now? Me then. Little me then, totally.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, next question. Did you have any art classes while growing up? And if so, what did you like to do in art class?
There was music classes. I don't recall really having like studio art classes, but I always really enjoyed drawing. Yeah, so I draw in my, I draw, even when I was a kid, I would draw in color.
Next question. What college did you go to and what did you study?
I attended Texas Tech University and studied communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long did you play football? What team did you play for? And how did you become a professional football player?
So I started playing in 7th grade and then played, so that's like 7th grade to like 3 years in the pros, 5 years in college, 4 years in high school. That's 9 to like 15 years ish, something like that, right? Is that, it's like 15 years ish. And then that was a multi-part question. And how?
What team did you play for?
What teams? Yeah. So the teams I played for, in junior high school, the Goddard, like, what were we, like Rockets, I think, something like that. I think, yeah. Then after that, it would have been like high school, freshman school, so Midland freshmen. And those were like the Bulldogs. So Midland High School Bulldogs, and Texas Tech Red Raiders, and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And then the last part of that question was, how did you become a professional football player?
Well, I mean, I technically, like, I made it to the pros. I never became a professional. like I got there, but like to become a professional, you have a professional like career. It's like I didn't really have that. Like, I was like, I mean, that's just how it is. I mean, I'm not somebody that's gonna like hang my hat on something that I'm not gonna hang my hat on anything. I don't want a hat. Just look at it for what it was. So like in that way, it's like, I guess to get to that point, to get to the point where someone would say you made it to be a professional, I was always a professional. I always approach it that way. There's never me making it to a place where what someone else said the place was made me anything different than what I've been. It's a lot of discipline, though, to do it. It is that. It's a lot of discipline. Mm. Hmm. But to do most things, to really do most things, it takes discipline. To do something that's really difficult to do and is trying to make it where you can't do that, that takes determination. So both of those, discipline, determination, talent, ability, luck. Also, the opposite of what you would call luck, which would maybe just like determination or tenacity. It is funny though, because we call being a professional we don't talk about it in terms of like really and strangely also we associate professionalism with simply the ability to make money from activity. And the ability to be compensated for the value you bring absolutely should be, and this is not just speaking sports wise, it's just in all different varieties. Your knowledge base, your skillfulness, the rarity and your uniqueness of like how you do that thing. So I think in a way, like I've even though I'm very far from being the best physical athlete I've ever been. I'm the best athlete I've ever been right now. Yeah. So next question.
The next question is, what made you want to focus on making art as an adult? Are you an adult?
Yeah, I was about to say, I was like not having to be an adult. But no, that's not better spoken would be well, sure. At one point, that the idea of being like, oh, an adult, like you got to take care of all these things, and like you kind of those are in many ways, whether you choose them or not, responsibilities. And So there's like this feeling of, like, I'm not even sure what that is. Like, and then you see like other adults and it's like, they're just like, you're a kid, you want a steak. And they always say that. Wait till you're an adult. Like, oh, you'll really see. And they're, that also could be said that way. Like, you'll really see. It's like those artists that are like out there living their kid artists. They're like, I'm an artist now. It's like, yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. But yo, being an adult artist, that's also awesome. Like, you'll see, it's also awesome, and you want to. And you want to get to see what that actually gets to be like. And then those responsibilities are not, you feel much differently about them. It's the question though was like, what maybe want to be an artist, or what
made you want to focus on making art?
Focus on making art. Oh, and then you were like, are you an adult?
Sorry.
Focus, no, it's good. Focus on making art. It's fun to improve at something. Like, it really is. It's fun to improve at something that you're interested in, that the more you practice at it, the more it teaches you. And the more it teaches you, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more skilled you can practice at it, and it becomes a relationship. And when I first started making art, and this is not when I was like a little kid or like younger, but more so when I got done playing, and that's what I was focused on doing full time, or what I thought I was. I mean, it still wasn't that full time. I thought that's what it was, but we'll maybe I'm gonna ramble and just see if we get to where I'm like, that's that what I was going for. It's like, I think often we're taught to learn something or get something because of what we're going to do with it. Or to get skillful at something, because then once you get skillful at that, then you can do this. And so there's always some strategy of like, okay, I'm going to, this equals that. I'm going to get strong so like people can see I got muscles, or I'm going to get, so now that this happens. Like, and what I came in, like what the process of making art taught me is the beauty in like practice for the sake of the practice itself. That's the experience of just that happening. It isn't the reward. It makes it so you don't want one. And in that space, that's the only place that real focus and commitment can happen. Otherwise, everything else is like an offshoot of manipulation and like trying to like scheme, and you don't even realize that it's happening. It's just like this background noise. It's just directing everything. You don't even realize it's happening. Like, well, how do I get it? But that's really, and like, and what's weird about it is like, it just takes over. It's like, you're thinking that way, but you never realize that how you're thinking is not a way that you decided on. It's just so I wouldn't say it's like a good or bad thing. It's just that you don't, all day your heart's beating and you're breathing. You're like, yeah, but on breath 6 I'm about to like make $1 million on like I'm gonna be able to like it's like, but like also practicing breathing is also a thing. So it's like making art in a way that's like once I and it was awesome because I got to experience that very closely, in a very close sequence after playing a sport that is so structured, that is so about like you winning or you competing and you being better than this other person, that once I came into a relationship with the art form of practicing art itself, it allowed me to start to see all of the strengths that are art forms in the sport I played, and how how I have those, and how those can be applied to all sorts of other things. And also, it showed me like the bad habits that I also had. That like I was like, I need to like not. I need to. Those habits are not good. Like one of those specifically is a hyper outward competitive nature of like wanting to prove that I'm better than other people. Mm-hmm. That's a trash attitude. It's just a straight garbage. It's just a garbage attitude. It's a garbage attitude that leads to many not good things. And what I learned over, the probably 4 or 5 years after I got done playing was that's never what I really liked anyway. It's simply that was a metric in which I was evaluated by other people. Mm-hmm. You have coaches. They have to see it that way. For me, it was never really about that. It was about me pushing myself. Mm-hmm. And once I learned that and started to apply that to making art, I got a lot better and I applied that to painting. I got much better at painting. Then the thing that kept pulling me into it was like realizing that also is something that didn't need to be held on to anymore. Like I don't need to prove anything. The only way to really explore one of the ways to explore that has revealed itself to me showing up is part of the allowance of that happening. But once the energy of striving comes into play, you can only ever get what you're wanting. Now, this nuance is big because too much we want what we think we want to get. Mm-hmm. And we're not open to just something else that could also be awesome. like that's, and that part is like the exploration that at this point it's like, yo, that's like, wow, like could just be wrong, and that could have been awesome, but this could just be way cooler. Could be way more incredible. Could be way more what is needed. Mm-hmm. What's best for me. And so in more so like like this phase of life, that's what's doing it for me now. We'll also say this to all these like younger homies and teacher, whoever's just gonna watch this video, it doesn't even matter. It's like your brain should feel like you were just like, dude, like I was like, oh, my brain's tired. That's good. Is that it?
No.
Oh.
There's a couple more.
Cool.
What type of art do you make? How would you describe your artistic style?
I'm trying to be able to make just the best waffles ever.
That makes me hungry.
I guess tasty and nourishing.
Next question. What is your artistic process to create an artwork? What materials do you use?
Excuse me. Well, I guess. Well, so here it is. I sit still. And this can happen even if I'm like walking around and moving or doing chores, but I come to a place where what's happening is what I'm thinking, and what I'm thinking about is what's happening. Might be doing dishes, sweeping the floor, whatever. And then however I'm feeling, I begin to just notice, and it could be like, man, I'm feeling kind of sad, feeling kind of, that I begin to just notice that. And then the next thought is, do I want, or does it seem pleasing or enjoyable or fun or soothing or nourishing to express this emotional state or simply just to be aware that that's how I'm feeling. If it is something that I'm like, yeah, I'd like to express that, the next considerations are, what are the tools, materials, and processes that best align with that in those moments, from a very somewhat practical sense, but also a state of just like honest reflection. From the practical sense, it's kind of like, what's the studio set up now? Like, I'll look at where the studio. That's why having an organized workspace is very necessary, because it allows you to explore those the variety and the range of those emotional states from a starting point of like equilibrium. It's like, it would be very difficult to express an emotional state of like, I'm feeling tranquil when the studio is chaotic. Like, I would have to like organize or create a space that's like starts that way to really enter into that appropriately, as opposed to just starting from a chaotic space. So that can be applied in across the board, like this, that, or this feeling. And then the next thought would be, do I feel like there's something that I need to express, that I need to hear for myself? Then the next thought is, that either happens, it either just happens and there is actually something there, or what happens is I have a contemplative question that isn't the form of a question like what is the answer to this, but it's just a contemplative question in terms of continuing to just do chores or do whatever, as I'm just okay with like feeling however I'm feeling. Then the next question would be, do I want to see what happens or choose to practice in this emotional state? Now, from this, either the walking around, we call it puttering. You putter around, you kind of just, in things you start scribbling, and then the practice just kind of starts, and it starts from there's still direction because you've identified how you're feeling, but you haven't given parameters because you haven't created a workflow, which would be like setting a table up blank, bringing writing utensils here, these colors here, these brushes to work. Or you're like, I do have something I'd want to express. And usually in this phase, this is probably, so if we're thinking about this in terms of like a time frame, usually probably about 30 to 45 minutes, like in, I'll start being like, oh, okay, this would be good to look through some of my sketches that I've done this week. Kind of look through some of my drawings, see what those are, and see also if those are like how I feel about those. Not how I feel about those, how those project their feeling on me. Now, if it looks like, and I'm like, dang, all week it seems like I've been sad, usually what I do is I rest, and I don't try to work and because usually that's what it is for me. It's just like I'm tired and I just need to rest. And then it's just still doing chores, cleaning up, organizing the studio. That's helpful work to do. Wow, this is crazy to even be able to explain like this. Like, this is great. Yeah, it's like, so if there's like the right, like, emotional ingredient list for something that I haven't explored yet to occur, I take some time to really think about what it would take to set the studio up to go into that workflow. Now this is like a big compass set, because this is like the part that like you start going and you're open to this taking you wherever it's going to take you. It could be a year of exploring this type of work. It just like that's what you're doing. That's like how you're exploring. That's like the map you think is right, but you're still uncharted territory. So from that, I guess next kind of consideration is, do I want to practice how to get where I don't know that I'm going or may end up? Or do I want to see where I'm at now? What that looks like from a process standpoint is, do I want to do one giant painting that I may work on for I don't know how long, but I'm just with this one painting? Or do I want to set up 4 different tables and explore this method of art making that emotionally and energetically aligns with this way I'm exploring, and practice that? Then what I usually 100% of the time choose to do is do both, because both of those can happen at the same time. And it's helpful. It's always been helpful for me to do that. And more art gets made that way. So and I say all this to, I'll also have to give context to the time frames that I'm talking about, because like I'm not talking about this, I walk into the studio and this is what I'm doing that day. It's like, this is what may be happening for like 3-4 years of a body of work. So when that question is like a deep question, it's like when you start an artwork, it's not just starting a new iteration of exploration of like practice. You could just do it for a week and you'd just be playing around, and you could do that and it's fine. But unless you let time be a tool that it is, and your experiences that you're having in lived life become a resource to inform the artwork, you're not exploring. Like, it can be done in that intentional heading that you're choosing to go. So I mean that's a really like loaded question there. You know, it's much less about, this is how it's very like so I had this older artist that told me one time, he was like, you're not going to be able to start really making and understanding and having clarity into like how you're making art until you just get a certain age, because that's why. It's not necessarily a certain age, it's a certain amount of time you've been making art. Mm-hmm. So imagine like I'm 80 years old now, and I can look back and be like, I'm 80 now. What all have I done with the last 3 decades? What does that mean? Like what? Like this is that's a thing to be able to draw and to be able to draw from. But it's no different than like the sketches you've done that week. That's what makes it that. Yeah. What else we got?
Let's see. How long does it take you to make an artwork?
Another Uh, here's what's okay. So this is very, very strange. Up to this point, once it's got to the point where I can recognize the variety of elements that I could use to make a piece that I could be like, that's a completed piece, I'm not interested in doing that anymore. Like, all of that practice within those things have already informed me of a fact that it's like, I know I could do, I don't even need to. But that's me uniquely. That's like in a part of like my essence as an artist is like an explorer. Like it's the curiosity to just proving what I know is uninteresting. Like it's like, yeah, I could, but every so often it is fun to do that. And what I find is that it's laborsome. It's laborsome, and if I was going to approach it in a way that because that's the thing about like knowing how something's done. Like that's what you got to do. Like and there's pockets in there where like you like, and this is very much a thing, is also learning how to work with, and this is a big lesson. This is a big and so a lot of these ideas that I'm talking about right now are deep dives into like of like art. This is not like, I mean, it is surface level because like I know like it's understandable, but it's these are things that it's just like, oh, we're making a bunch of art over and over and over again, and this is kind of like where these are, if a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense, they're like, well, I don't get it. It's like, that's totally okay. For those who are like, oh, I totally get that, don't try to remember it. If you actually got it, it's there. Like, I'm not pointing at anything that if you get it, isn't there for you. Like it's there. So the once non-binary perspective becomes like a subconscious way of thinking, what consciously you gravitate towards wanting to do it becomes a practice of trusting that intuitively. If you were at the point where I say there's three choices, or there's two choices to make, or one choice to make out of these three things. You got to pick two of these. You got to, and someone looks at it as like, if I don't do this, I have to do that. And they're not yet to the point where it's just like, oh, you didn't say you're making me make these decisions or there's a consequence, and you could just be like, no, I don't want to. If intuitively in your subconscious, it's not to the point yet where you have restraint. When decisions approach you and say you have to make a decision, and you're like, no, I don't. There's not yet the word that cushioning. To play creatively with what intuitively you want to explore. Because what'll happen is you'll just like make a bunch of decisions that you have to make, and it's labor. And you just created a bunch of work that doesn't really mean anything because you did it. Like, see what I mean? And you're not it's not about being like the captain of the ship, but it is about being like, this is how you row. This is how the ship works. This is how it's about being able to practice while that's happening, not just be like, oh, and this is why this is like and I know to many artists that are at this point, and they're gonna be like, he's talking to me, right? Yes, I am. When you're in the studio, you're like, what next? What's the next thing to do to make this painting? It's like, practice not doing anything. Like, see what happens. Organize your space. Sweep the floors. Have restraint. Like, the spontaneous nature of making art and seeing something happen is like it's like a rush. It's like it's exciting. But it can be a big distraction. It can be a big distraction, and it can. And the reason why is it clouds the ability to be interdisciplinary. To be interdisciplinary, you got to have restraint and be like, okay, well, to really make this work, I need to organize a studio for 5 months. And I actually need to do that. Like, it's like, it actually, you got to like, that needs to happen, because you're like, oh, to really do that, this needs to be working over here, cooking this. This needs to be stirring over here. This needs to be going over here. This needs to be able to do this. At this time, this needs to get... And that's really... It can't just be like... Ugh. Like, so... It's... But it's not a bad thing to have that, to be in that place, and to recognize that that place is a true and real thing, and awesome art can get made by that. And to give context, when I say awesome art, it's literally what I mean when someone is at the point, and there's a lot of artists. It's always great to be at this point where you can make something and be like, wow. Whoa. And you feel that way about it. It makes you feel that way. It's like, whoa. But in that moment when that happens, that's the same feeling that gives you the power to always have restraint. Whoa. Whoa. Making art is cool. Getting to make art is all like it really is. It's really it is a groovy thing. Some deep dives. What's the next question? Is it another one like that? It's like, oh,
What do you love about art?
I'm just gonna talk about the things that come to mind because there's so much. The first one will be that it helps me explore what that word that we call love even is. Most of all, like, it's like and not only that, but it helps me explore that more by being open to the fact that I actually don't know. I have no idea what that even means. But I know that it pulls as it prepares what it's pulling. To not want to push against it. I guess that was yeah. Didn't know that was there, but yeah, it's like yeah.
And finally, do you think art is important for the world? And if you do, why?
I feel that it's a beautiful combination of things to grow in the skillfulness and the desire to meet challenges that require oneself to question their own perspective while holding an attitude of like an uplifted attitude, not a oh, like a forward not in that way, while noticing and being disciplined at becoming more skillful with tools, materials, technologies, resources, but not with the desire to competitively, or from a place of compulsion, which is like the opposite of restraint. Like have that be the motive to why you're creating things. So would I make art and care about what it looked like if only I could ever see it? Would I make art and care more about what it looked like over the experience I'm having with making it if only I could ever see it? If I knew everyone, people who aren't even born yet would see it, would I think about that more than the experience of it just happening when it's only I that can ever actually see it while it's happening doing it? Or be like, because like these are why is it helpful? Because it trains a human being in the nuance of circumstantiality. Creates flexibility of perspective. And it hones the restraint and spontaneous skillfulness required to really and deeply participate in life. Yeah. That is not to be confused with me talking about painting. Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That was all of them?
Mm-hmm.
Was that like 3 hours of like, it was.